welcome to another episode of the Edmonds Mom's Room podcast. I am Dr. Allison Felt, owner of Body Motion Physical Therapy, and I am so delighted today to be with Rachel May, and she owns Rachel May Music, and she is also the host of an amazing podcast called Mama's Cup of Ambition. So thank you so much, Rachel. I know you have much more going on that you'll share with us, but I'm excited to get to know you a little bit more and introduce you to the audience. So
awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's totally an honor. I've been a fan of the Edmonds Mom's Room for a while. So when y'all asked me to do this, it was an easy yes.
Awesome. Cool. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
So first off, your music. Can I just start with that? Like, I love this music that you do. It is absolutely beautiful. And I'm pretty tone deaf. So I don't even know how to describe it other than maybe you can, like kind of a mix of country, but not country, a mix of like just beautiful soul music.
Thank you. Yes, my favorite way that my music has ever been described that I've kind of just taken as like, ooh, I love that, I'm going to run with it, is Loretta meets Etta, meaning Loretta Lynn meets Etta James. And to me, like those two things, they're both major influences for me as a child. I'm the daughter of a blues musician. And my dad had honky tonk roots. My grandpa grew up in Tennessee, and he was actually like a country singer, guitar player, and yodeled. So some like serious country roots. But then my dad became a blues musician. And so I grew up with this like weird combination of country and blues influence. So I think my music reflects a lot of that. I really like that old school style of country and anything with soul. That just makes my heart sing.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I love that stuff too. That is so good. Tell me, when did you start singing? Kind of what's your history?
Yeah. So I always tell people I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. So for me, when I was a kid watching my dad perform, I was like, there's something to this. Like, this is amazing. I want to do this. So I started getting really curious about music as a kid, going to band rehearsals with my dad. And then my dad would open tune the guitar for me. So when you open tune a guitar, it makes a really beautiful sound. So you don't have to know how to hold any chords or anything, but you just feel like a rock star because you can strum and it sounds beautiful. So my dad really kind of like fanned the flames of that musical inspiration as a kid. And then I guess it was like I was in third or fourth grade. My sister and I created a group called the Twister Sisters. And this is where that entrepreneurial spirit comes in. So we started going around to senior centers in the area to book gigs, and we just kind of put on these little performances. It was us and two of our friends, and we called ourselves the Twister Sisters, and we'd go to these senior centers and do performances at like ice cream socials. And at like some point, VH1 behind the music style, everybody decided they no longer wanted to be in the Twister Sisters, and I was like, I want to keep doing this. So from there, I started singing at weddings. I would ask anybody as a kid who I knew was getting married if I could sing their wedding, which, let me just say how nice these people were to say yes, because I was just a kid. That's kind of a gamble on one of the biggest days of your life. But from there, I just had that bug, and I realized oh, this is really something I love, and I've just never stopped.
Oh, that is so cool. So people let you sing at their wedding. So you were that good at such a young age. You had to have been. There is no way.
I don't know that I was that good. I think people were just that generous, or they saw in my heart. I mean, I had some ability. I'll give myself that. I had showmanship, and I could carry a tune because I grew up with musician family. But I think I just was asking some really generous people. One of those people being my aunt, who was maybe she felt bad saying no, but I mean, I rocked it. I did a Toni Braxton cover, and I owned it. Yeah, they were just some really big hearted people, I think.
So where did your confidence come from? How did that, I want to teach my daughter this. How do I do that?
There was definitely a lot of fear. I was kind of that Spitfire kid to begin with. I think a lot of it comes back to my mom and how she lived. My mom was this amazing, both of my parents really just bigger than life spirits. I mean, they met hitchhiking, and they just had this crazy love story. And like my dad being a blues musician, had like he just is this free spirit. And then my mom was this like beautiful hippie soul who like danced point ballet, and we would tap dance together. And my mom, I remember her roller skating around Green Lake. Like she just was not afraid of how the world saw her. And I think as a kid, just seeing that example played out from the people around you, you get this idea that it's okay to just be yourself. So I think it started with my parents for sure. And then there was definitely a lot of fear. I mean, I was trembling at those weddings and those little ice cream socials, but I
Yeah.
think the more you do something, the easier it gets. And so just putting yourself out there and repeating, wash,
Yeah.
rinse, repeat.
Was there a time in your teens when you kind of have those insecurities? Those insecurities honestly never go away for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, were there certain times that you had to battle it more than others? And
Oh, for sure. I think as I got into my teens, there was more of this like awareness of like, oh, people are going to judge me. Although I'm 38 right now. So I had the benefit of not having my teenage years on social media. I think it would have been
yeah,
so different. I think about that a lot of like, it would have been so cool on one hand because I would have been all over YouTube. I would have been posting videos like the Twister sisters would have had a channel.
yeah,
But I think I also had the luxury of not having all of those eyes and all of the like invisible, like behind the keyboard warriors saying whatever they want. And I think for
totally.
me, it was a little bit easier to not be so aware of what everybody thought. But I definitely battled those insecurities just like anybody. And as I got a little bit older, I started to think, like, well, that's cute that you wanted to do music, but that's not a career, which is so bizarre to me that I even went there because I had parents who were role modeling that you could be whatever you wanted to be and that music could absolutely be a career. But I think the older I got, those insecurities and that resistance started to like rear their head in the form of be realistic and maybe you should do something else, which to me it played itself out as me joining cosmetology school.
Okay.
So I'm a beauty school dropout. I got into beauty school, and this was when I was 18 years old. And I was like, well, this is sensible because I could do hair and I could, take that anywhere. And that's probably more sensible than doing music as a career. And I was awful at it. I hated it from the minute I got in there. Like it was when you do something and you're just so aware you're totally out of alignment with what you're supposed to be doing. That was me day one. I was not good at it. I wasn't loving it, but I was just telling myself like, this is what you do. This is what being an adult is.
Right.
And when I was 19, my mom ended up passing away.
Yeah.
She had lupus. So she had been sick for a long time. And when she passed away, there was this like switch in my mind that was just like, you know what? This is not what life is about. And this is not what my mama taught me to do.
Yeah.
And I quit beauty school, just dropped out. Like I never went back after that. And it was the best decision I ever made. And it took me a few years after that to come back to my music and to really like reconnect with that dream. But that happened because I was able to see and to walk away from something that I knew wasn't serving me well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's powerful. And it's lovely that your kid gets to see you grow up doing that and like doing what you love, because that, that is so cool. And takes a ton of guts, to just do.
There were definitely some people on my mom's side of the family. My grandfather was definitely very irritated with me, like, oh, you're throwing your whole life away. And as a 19-year-old, that gets in your head. But I think, thank you so much. Like, thank you, past Rachel May, for listening to yourself and doing that. Because how much time would I have wasted pursuing something that wasn't for me?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like so many of us do that. And we then find ourselves in the thick of something where we've poured so much energy into something that we knew we weren't in alignment with.
Oh, 100%. And it's so much when you have these respected elders or like members of your family that you have so much respect for, and you've grown up, idolizing these people, and then to not take their word for it and really listen to yourself. I mean, that is so hard to do, and just really really
Yeah,
good to
because
do.
you want to please people. I mean, especially your
Yeah.
family. It matters to you what people think. And it's like when you're a kid, I feel like there's sort of this like, oh, that's cute that she's doing music. And then as you get older, some people just have their own opinions about like music is one of those careers where a lot of folks would rather see you do anything else and I'll be the first
Yeah.
to say it's not an easy career path, but
Yeah.
what is easy? I mean, most of the things that are the hardest are the most worthwhile, in my opinion.
Awesome. Love it. Um, did this is a little side note here,
Yeah.
but did you grow up in Seattle? You said your mom would rollerblade around Green Lake. So I'm like, you must have, are you local?
Kind
From
of. So
okay.
this is always one of those questions when people ask me where I'm from, where I'm like, well, it gets messy. So my parents, they were like this like wild love affair, but then they ended up getting divorced when I was, I think, 2 or 3 years old. And my mom was a total road runner. Like she just loved to travel. And I think having lupus too, like she knew time was short for her and she just wanted to live every single minute of her life in full on. So my dad, he was planted here and he had his music career going in the Seattle blues scene. And so my dad had roots here. My mom, we moved from New Mexico. We lived in Nevada. We lived in Arizona. We lived here. So I kind of had like a back and forth. Like we had roots in Washington. So Seattle really feels like home for me. But I inherited that from my mom. We moved to Nashville and lived there for a couple years and then moved back here. Like I definitely have her adventurous traveling soul, I think.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Um, where can we find your music? Where can listeners find you?
Yeah. So if you search Rachel May Music and it's May with an E, I always tell people that because my name has been misspelled so many different ways, so many shows. I can't even tell you how many times I've been introduced as Rachel Ray. Do y'all remember Rachel Ray?
Yep. Oh yeah.
She's the TV. What would she be? A cooking
Yeah.
reality star.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so not me. I can't cook to save my life, but my name's been spelled like so many times is Rachel Ray, but it's Rachel May, Mae, music, and you can find me that way. There's a website. I'm pretty much anywhere you search that, you'll find me.
Cool. Do you write your own stuff?
I do. Yes.
Wow, that is impressive.
Thank
that is
you.
impressive. Is it, I mean, I would imagine, I don't know anything about being a singer or a musician, but is there pressure on yourself to like always be producing new stuff?
Yes, although I have to say, when I was younger, I felt that pressure a lot. I really I internalized it and I felt there was like this thing that I was always chasing. And I'd say, so when we moved to Nashville, I got really caught up in that pressure of like, oh, you have to be doing all of the things and you have to be this certain way. And I would go into these publisher meetings where they would say like, oh, we love what you're doing and we love your music, but we don't know what to do with you. And you're too country for today's radio, but you're too soulful and we don't know where to put you. And so that really started to get in my head. And the other things they'd start to tell me was like, well, you're too old to be a performer, but if you just want to be a writer behind the scenes, you could have a great career. And that was something that really stuck with me too, because it was like, well, wait a minute now, too old. I think of some of my heroes.
Look at Dolly Parton.
Right. Like music doesn't have an expiration date.
No.
And so much wisdom comes with age, right? So it's like, I would be so sad if, the Dolly Partons of the world stopped creating music because they were like, well, I'm in my 30s now, so that's it. It's like, what a fallacy. And I think I realized I am chasing someone else's vision. And I think when it snapped into place for me that I'm the gatekeeper of my own dreams, I stopped worrying so much about that pressure and just started focusing on like, I will create what's real and what's authentic for me. And I will share it with the people who want that from me. But I don't want to have to pretend. I don't want to hide my age. I don't want to have to pretend to be something because guess what? You're going to figure out that I'm aging like we all are. Yeah. So I don't want to attract people to my music that are only looking for me to be some version of myself that the industry wants. And I feel like the freedom of just deciding that I'm going to let my music be what it's going to be, that pressure kind of went out the window. So I did for a long time, a lot of years I spent worrying about being like out in front of everybody all the time. And I think motherhood too kind of forces you to check that and to realize like, well, that's just not a reality anymore. So I've kind of made peace with it, and it's probably the most freedom I've ever felt as an artist, and some of my most creative work has been able to come to life in that space.
Oh, so good. So good. I'd imagine it takes a dedication to keep yourself on a path of creation.
Yeah.
An authentic creation.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Really cool. Tell us about your kiddo.
Yeah. So my little boy, Waylon, he'll be a year in April, which I don't know how. Everybody always told me that it goes by so fast. And
Yes.
I never understood that until I had him. And then I'm like, I just blinked and he's a year old already. I don't know how that happened. But yes, his name's Waylon, and he's named after Waylon Jennings, who is my honky tonk hero. And yeah, he is just the love of our lives. I don't know. I think I put off becoming a mom for a long time because as like I was talking about in that music industry, you're kind of told that if you want to have a family, you're not going to have that career and you have to choose. And like I was telling you, when I decided to let go of all of those constraints that I was feeling, I realized I don't have to choose. I can have both. And yes, it changes the way that I move through my career, but that is, I want him to see his mama dreaming and living out her life and believing in herself. That's what I want for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely. Cool. Tell us where the launch of the podcast came from.
So after I had Waylon, like I said, he's going to be a year old. So we gave birth in the middle of a pandemic and it's a really long story. And I actually have an episode all about it on my podcast, but right before I went into my third trimester, we got flooded out of our house and found ourselves homeless and pregnant and looking for a new place to live with like a few weeks to go. And so we kind of
pandemic when everyone's isolated.
Yes. We slid into this pregnancy in the most like bizarre circumstances. And of course, like none of that went the way I planned. And so, that's just the way things go, right? I've learned that over the years. But after Waylon was born, and we didn't have the kind of postpartum support that we had anticipated. I mean, I had really planned to a T how postpartum was going to be because I thought I was in control of it. I thought, okay, I've got everything all in order. And then the universe was like, no, that's cute. No. So
that's a good reminder.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah, just release those expectations and just go with the flow instead of trying to create the waves. And I realized in postpartum, all of a sudden, I just felt this wave of like identity crisis. Like all of those things that I had heard over the years about like, oh, well, if you choose a family, you're choosing family over career, kind of started to like seep into my subconscious. And it really kind of brought me down. And I started to just have this identity crisis in postpartum of like, well, what does this mean now? Like now that I'm a mom, like, is this the end of my music? Is this the end of all of that entrepreneurship and all those creative ideas that I have? And the more I thought about it, the more I just started longing to hear stories of other mamas who were doing the thing, right? They had the families and they were doing whatever it was that sets their soul on fire. And I wanted to hear, I don't want to just hear the like, yeah, I'm doing it like mom boss. Like I want to hear the messy parts too. I want to normalize all of the parts of chasing a dream and being a mom because it is crazy what happens when you throw a child into the mix while chasing 100%. A dream. It's wild. It's amazing. Yeah. And I love it. And I wouldn't trade it for anything, but I really just started longing for those stories and that connection with other mamas. And so they say success leaves clues. So I just started looking for those clues and following breadcrumbs of other mamas who were doing the things that I want to be doing. But I found that like I was spending a lot of time on social media and I ended up having some serious postpartum anxiety that I didn't realize was going on. Yeah. And I realized just looking for those like little breadcrumbs on social media wasn't actually serving me very well because I was actually seeing a lot of people's highlight reels, right? You can go down a rabbit hole on Instagram of seeing the perfect, polished, curated side of motherhood that isn't exactly how it always is. And I realized
100%.
not serving me very well. I'm going there looking for support and camaraderie, but what I was finding was like feeling inadequate and like, oh, I forgot to take a picture of my son in his Valentine's outfit. Like, what kind of mom am I? I mean, I was feeling mom guilt over the stupidest things. And so I just kept talking to my husband and I was like, I know I'm not the only one who has like these big ambitions, but also like things feel chaotic and kind of crazy. And I don't feel like a mom boss all the time. And so I basically just talked my husband's ear off for the first few weeks. And then eventually was like, you know what? I need to create a platform and a space where I can connect with moms who are having those experiences and draw out those stories and create those conversations first for myself, because it's what I really need in this season, but ultimately to create community around mamas for a safe space to be honest about this and to like acknowledge that, yes, we have these dreams and we're able to chase them. And also, yes, it's hard and it's messy and we don't have to go it alone. Yeah. So Mama's Cup of Ambition, that's where it was born.
I love it. I love it. That's so good. And I'm so honored I get to be a guest on that too.
Oh, I cannot wait.
Devin, my manager here, she was like, you got to see this. I get to sign you up for this podcast. And she was like, we got to do this. It's so professional and sleek. And I'm like, okay, let's do it.
Yay. Oh my gosh. I am so excited.
You're amazing. Yeah. And I'm excited to be a part about it. So awesome. Yeah, thank you for doing this and everything like that.
Oh, thank you.
So 2 handles we can find you at: Mama's Cup of Ambition and Rachel May Music. Yes. And any other places you want to leave?
I mean, I'm a multi-passionate mama. And so I do lots of things. The only other thing that I would throw out there is if you're a dog mama listening and you are obsessed with dogs like me, if you search up I Am Dog Obsessed, you'll find all kinds of crazy dog stuff there, because I am a crazy dog mom in the best way. Crazy amazing. Meaning like totally obsessed and in love with dogs, and we nerd out about dogs all day long there.
Love it. Cool. Oh, I have to add that to who we follow, because I love doggies and I'm impressed that you stayed in love with your dog even after you had a kid. My dog is not so loved anymore, but that's another story. We try.
Well, if you ever need any help with your dog, you know who to call, because I've been simultaneously, like while I've chased my music, I've been working with dogs for like 2 decades. So
oh, wow.
If you need some help with your pup, you know who to call.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. Yeah. Side note. Love it. Well, thank you so much for being here and being a part of this.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored. And like I said, I love this podcast. I've been listening for a long time. So I'm really honored to be here. And I appreciate you taking time to invite me to share my story.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much, and look forward to connecting with you in the future.
Thank you.
The Edmonds Mom's Room podcast is brought to you by Body Motion Physical Therapy. We help women through pregnancy and beyond so they can live active, confident, and healthy lives.